This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
All right, this is the one I can feel it. Podcast. The first and the best Chiefs podcast. Real ones know the show is called Amateur Hour. The Amateur Hour podcast is now airing on KC Sports Network. Ryan Scott Hall and his Dirkness are back again. We've got football, friendship, and fun. All these shows, we're still number one, season 12. Oh, wow, here it comes. Welcome, my friends, to Amateur Hour podcast. Podcast. Man, I can't hit that note right. Podcast! Is that right? Well.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
What is this, Amateur Hour?
Yeah, I ain't no Superman businessman like you. You know, I'm just a
amateur,
I suppose.
Amateur Hour
Is what's happening.
Amateur Hour
Is what's happening.
Yeah, that's right, folks. Amateur Hour is what's happening. That's the name of the show. My name is Ryan Scott Hall, and joining me today, a man who's never truly out of his element, his Dirkness.
So,
I'm just hanging, man. It's Tuesday night. It's 8 o'clock. We're here. We're live.
oh, right. We're on.
Yeah. Is this thing on? Dirk, the Chiefs won.
Hey,
Chiefs won on Sunday. That was good. Good to see them beat the Raiders, a team that I admittedly at one time said I would rather go 2-0 against that team and 0-14 on the rest of the schedule than vice versa. Hate those Raiders.
halfway there. Kind
of. Chiefs got to play their first game against Marcus Peters in a Raiders uniform, and I think,
How do you do?
yeah, I mean, well,
That was his BFF grade.
he got an argument with the important people on the sideline. And I know he got released today, and
Did he keep his shoes on?
Socks.
Socks.
What he was missing. Shoes. He did.
I think he had shoes on his hands, right? Wasn't that it? He came out with shoes on his hands.
I mean, look, if in order to get Sky Moore going, I have to sacrifice Marcus Peters, I think I'll do it. Maybe the best play of Sky Moore's career. Not the worst play of Marcus's career, I would say.
Pretty standard.
Who had a worse missed tackle, Marcus Peters or Mike Edwards?
Oof. One of them stayed on the field. One of them still has a job, so I guess the guy that still has the job, I'll take him.
Probably right. All right, Dirk. Did the Chiefs finally answer the wake-up call on Sunday against the Raiders?
The wake-up call. Similar to the alarm, it's a high-risk proposition, a multitude of reasons why it might malfunction. So why haven't they answered it? Was it the snooze? No, it's not the snooze. Most people think it's the snooze. Was it the AM PM? No, it wasn't the AM PM. So while all of us Chiefs fans have been channeling our inner Donnie from Big Lebowski, phone's ringing, dude. Trying to get this team to answer that elusive wake-up call. Did it come versus Detroit? Nah, they hadn't even gone to sleep since last year's celebration that early. How about Denver? Anybody answer? No? How about Philly? Hello? Uncle Leo? Finally, down 14-0 to Farva and the Las Vegas Raiders, the separate knobs of the NFL. And we shout out to the football gods. Why separate knobs? Why separate knobs? Andy Reid answered, some teams like the volume louder in December and January, not in September and October. And just like that, bam, the Chiefs are awake. They answered that wake-up call.
So after the team goes down 14-0, a scoreless first quarter for a team that hasn't been scoring in the second half, I found myself asking this, and like you may not have the answer. It's totally fine.
I got it.
After they went down 14-0, what changed? And like, did someone spark the change? Do we have some sort of like rallying sideline session or did they just have a slow start and then they woke up and started playing the Raiders?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Raiders aren't like some chums. Their defenses look good this season. And I thought Aiden O'Connell looked good in this game, especially early. I mean, they were dealing. It's real interesting to me. The most interesting question is what if they got down 17-0? Because even in that first drive, like they didn't, or early on in the game, like Mahomes looked a little out of sorts. He had that weird like lob pass to Kelsey on like the second play of the game. Yeah. The first play of the game got completely blown up. We'll get to that later with a fun little deep dive, silly little deep dive, I should say. But yeah, and then a few other games he just didn't. I mean, he was kind of pressing a little bit, it seemed, and then you just kind of settled down. I mean, you got to settle down into the game, and you do need to wake up. And I mean, I mean, does this mean that all of a sudden I have 100% faith in this Chiefs offense again already? No, nothing like that. But man, it sure was good to see. Like it did feel like old times. It felt smooth again. Kind of got Mahomes getting back into his rhythm, getting the ball out. When he didn't, he actually found Rashee Rice on a created scramble. That's a play that's usually saved for Kelsey or McKinnon a lot last year. It's good to see him find Rice on that. So it was just good to see them. This is kind of what the Chiefs can look like if they don't turn it over. They limit their penalties. They convert in the red zone. They don't drop passes. They had the one, but only one. They pick up 3rd and 1s. If they execute, right now we can see that the Chiefs offense looks good. And it's been a few weeks since we've seen that. I mean, errors aplenty, especially the last 3 weeks. So I don't know if there was anything other than just focusing in, it's time to lock in both in this game and in the season and, sharpen it up and get it together and start playing efficiently. And hopefully this is the first game of many of a stretch run where they do start to do that, which we've seen before in 2021, as I've laid out before, a stretch of, 6 games in there where they turned it over like crazy. They weren't scoring points. And then all of a sudden, in December, they found their mojo again and started scoring over 30 points a game again.
I mean, when I'm sitting here, the Chiefs are down 14-0, and I'm just like, well, great. We're like really in a hole now, not just in this game, but like, so this is where the team is really. We're down 14-0 to the Raiders.
Could have been easily, should have been 17, and it could have been 21 if the Raiders go for that and, convert. It was 4th and like 1.5, I think. So could have been worse. At
that point, like my confidence meter, we were talking last week about confidence a lot. My confidence meter, super low. I was imagining like, this is what rock bottom is going to be. This is going to be the game where they just completely tank. And yet it ended up being like kind of a vanilla Chiefs win. You mentioned like kind of getting back to the old ways, so to speak. And like, I don't know, everything felt normal to me once they started scoring in the second quarter. And that's kind of surprising, circumstances considered. I had a couple different things happening here. Number one, obviously the Chiefs offense hasn't been scoring at the rate that we're used to. And so going down 14 doesn't necessarily bode well for a team that's not putting up points in the second half 3 straight weeks. But even on top of that, a friend of mine came and watched the game with me, my buddy Steve. Welcome home. Hadn't been able to sit on a couch with my guy and watch a football game in 9 years. And despite all that time, it still felt totally normal, I think, for both of us to just be sitting there watching the Chiefs on a Sunday. Look, I don't know.
Normal 9 years ago was a lot different than normal of the last 5 years.
Well, correct. Yes. But I don't know, the big comeback for them being down 14 and winning. I don't know. Maybe it's because the Chiefs are 17-3 after a loss in the Mahomes era. Maybe that's why it felt normal. Maybe it's because the Chiefs are 15-11 when down double digits in the Mahomes era. No other quarterback over 500. Thanks for that stat, Trey Wingo. Maybe that's why it was. Honestly, it's probably because Mahomes is abnormal. He's always been. And this was a welcome reminder of what normal is in Kansas City when Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback.
Real quick on that, 15 and 11. So Mahomes is 15 and 11 when down double digits, which you mentioned. That is, I mean, you mentioned that's way better than any other quarterback facing double digits. How about better win percentage than quarterbacks just starting the game? So no double-digit deficit. That is a better win percentage than, get ready, Rich Gannon, Troy Aikman, Phillip Rivers, Joe Flacco, Michael Vick, Matt Ryan, Fran Tarkenton, Matt Hasselbeck, Cam Newton, Mark Brunell, Carson Palmer, Warren Moon, Eli Manning, Dan Fouts, Joe Namath, Trent Green, Deshaun Watson, and damn it, only one more win from Kurt Warner, who would be fun, and Joe Burrow. That is
so his winning percentage when down 14 points is better than all of those guys in their careers.
In their career.
Real winning percentage.
Double digits, not 14 points. Double digits. So
double digits, right. Yeah.
Troy Aikman's kind of surprising because it seems like all he did was win. Like I know he was 1-15 as a rookie, so I guess that weighs it down quite a bit. But man, that dude, he didn't play too long, so he wasn't losing a lot like in his late career. And he obviously had 3 Super Bowls in there. I was kind of, that was the most surprising name on that list for me.
Last week I was a little heated, very frustrated with my football team after the way that they lost to the Eagles. And I asked for a lot of things. So I had like a Christmas list, basically. And this week, I think less was indeed more. I first kind of started with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are the ones that have to fix this. They're the ones that are bottom line responsible, even though they're not necessarily at fault. They're the ones that are in charge. And so I said, well, Andy's got to send a message. He needs to bench MVS. Not really, didn't really happen, but he kind of got shelved. The snaps were down for him a little bit, only 1 target. I loved listening to the lab and hearing that you and I and everyone we know had more receiving yards than Marcus Valdez-Scantling did. Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Also on my Christmas list, Dirk, be conservative, protect the football, take the points, check. Simplify the offense, make it easy for the receivers, check. Quick game, give me drags, give me slants, give me screens, check. Compress the targets, more Noah Gray. Can we get some receivers off the field and see Noah Gray? Check. Stop extending the plays. Mahomes took a sack. He just took one. Loved it. It was great. I loved seeing him take a sack instead of extending the play. Check. How about run the football? Check. How about catch the football? Check. The Chiefs listen to Amateur Hour, Dirk. I'm telling you. They listen.
I mean, we ran for like 100 more yards last week than we did this week, so that might be stretching a little bit.
I mean, I didn't say run the ball successfully. I just said run it.
Well, we also ran it way more last week than we
run
did
the ball.
But we did pick up 3rd and 1s, which is the biggest thing that we need kind of from the run game.
Yeah.
And it felt like it ran better than it did, even though the run game still might be struggling a little bit. That one game that it did really pop out was against the Eagles, oddly enough. But I mean, the big thing there for me is the shortening of the receiver room. Something we've kind of been harping on since as early as after week 1, when we kind of talked about too many chefs in the kitchen at Cheesecake Factory. I'm still looking for my nickname list. I had a whole bunch of nicknames written down for every receiver, but I lost that list.
I love the Cheesecake Factory.
It was too many. I couldn't even handle it. So how are they supposed to handle it? I can't even just handle the nicknames of it. But I think that was kind of the big thing, and it was kind of by necessity. So McCole, I mean, his injury didn't seem too serious. He finishes the game last week, but then now he's missing at least 4 weeks. Is that the idea with IR, or is he out for good? I wasn't totally sure on that.
I believe it's
okay. And then Tony's mysterious injury where it was like an ankle, and then all of a sudden he was out with a hip. I don't know did we ever hear if that was a practice thing or just a one spaghetti limb is connected to the next rigatoni limb? Is that kind of situation? I'm not sure.
So I mean, I was curious, and actually, you know what? Let's take a break real quick, and then I'll touch on this receiver conversation.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
All right, as requested in the chat,
Whoa.
let the hair down. You're welcome.
Wow.
Let it
Didn't
down.
know we had ladies listening.
All right. All right. Before we dive into some receivers here, are you looking for a way to make a big impact in Kansas City? That's what KCSN is all about, helping the people. Well, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City need sponsors for their sports teams and leagues. You can help local kids while promoting your business throughout the metro just by emailing giving@helpkckids.org. Your company can hit it out of the park with a sports league sponsorship with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City, reach thousands of local families while giving kids the opportunity to get in the game. Remember, it's giving@helpkckids.org for more information.
Your company can hit it out of the park with a sports league sponsorship with Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City.
I just read that one, Dirk.
Did you read that?
I just read that one.
Fuck, we can edit that later. Do you find yourself
amateur hour?
You find yourself coaching from the couch during the games? Consider coaching from the sidelines through volunteering with Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Kansas City. Learn more at helpkckids.org. I'm just trying to help the people, Ryan. Maybe they didn't hear you. Sometimes you don't speak too eloquently. You need me to pick it up.
That's fair. Two things before we get to the receivers. Number one, here at Amateur Hour, we're not always the most company friendly, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. Are we beefing with KC Sports Network?
No, not at all. I'm just saying,
I'm down. I'm not
really in the super duper promotion, self-promotion business. But KCSN is doing right now the Soul of KC Raffle thing. This is the third year they've done it. I heard BJ say that the last 2 years they've raised $35,000 combined, which is pretty sweet. If you guys haven't seen the prizes, it's mostly a bunch of cool autographed Chiefs memorabilia. Buy some raffle tickets. I'm sure if you just go on Twitter and look at KC Sports Network, you'll find the way to buy the tickets, Venmo or something butter, GiveButter, donate butter.
That too.
Butter something. I don't know what it's called. But I think that it's honestly, it would be a really cool Christmas gift. Hey parents, hey wife, hey girlfriend, hey brother, whatever. Got you some raffle tickets, or I want raffle tickets. That's a smart way to do it. And all of it goes to Operation Breakthrough, which to me, a really special place. We got a lot of kids at my school that go to Operation Breakthrough after school. And Travis Kelsey works with Operation Breakthrough as well to build the ignition lab and stuff. And all of the money that gets donated, KCSN just goes to Dick's on this wild shopping spree and spends, $20 grand in one night and loads up a truck. And it's all Christmas presents for kids that otherwise might not get them. So really, really cool thing that they do that's going on right now. So, donate your money, give it away, be generous. It's the season of giving. Now let's talk some receivers. I was thinking, is it really as simple as just removing a few guys? We go into this game with no Tony, no Hardman, and McKinnon's also out, and we're kind of talking about wanting to reduce the number of overall targets in terms of the people that are getting them. Can we start to concentrate where the ball is going? And I don't know. Let me ask you this. Without Tony and Hardman, did they use pre-snap motion? Tony and Hardman are typically the guys that do a lot of the misdirection stuff before the play. And I mean, Richie James was active. He only got 9 snaps or something, I think. Sky Moore has done some of that. I know they moved Travis a little bit back and forth, but I don't know if that was just not part of the offense on Sunday. I don't really remember. Maybe that's a question for people who watch all 22. I don't know, though. P.S. Time is a flat circle, and Andy was all of us when he said in his press conference that they were worried about Kadarius Toney being able to take a hit. That the result of the hip injury and ultimately what led to them sitting him down. Yeah, Andy, I'm always worried about Kadarius Toney being able to take a hit. And honestly, it may not even be that. It might just be I'm worried about Kadarius Toney being able to cut without it rupturing something because he does such violent change of direction.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, the hits just like bounce right off him. That's where the Rigatoni nickname comes from. It's because they're like tackling a plate of spaghetti. It's like you tackle it, it just kind of reforms and keeps running.
One of the things that I've always found really impressive about Tony is that he runs hard. Like he's not just a guy that's like tough to tackle because he's shifty. Like that dude runs with some power. I remember hearing that he's like one of the stronger pound for pound guys on the team, and you wouldn't necessarily think that. But he runs with some purpose. But not having those guys out there, like there's probably a lot more going on than just fewer receivers available for you. But I don't know, it kind of resulted in like a pretty ideal box score for the offense. I mean, Mahomes has 300 passing yards and a couple touchdowns. He doesn't turn it over. He only got sacked once. They only got penalized 4 times. Pacheco gets 20 touches for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think both of them were like 1-yard plunges, right? Both of his touchdowns were short. And I mean, just like on 3rd and short, where they're like goal line carries for Pacheco. Kind of our short yardage sledgehammer might be the solution that we're looking for. I mean, Rashee Rice, obviously, 8 for 100 and a touchdown. Kelsey goes 6 for 91. Sky Moore and Noah Gray go 3 for 30. White receiver 1 reception on the day. And it was a touchdown. I mean, I think
which was a great play. It was a great play.
I think only 6 guys caught a ball. And like typically it's 8 or 9 or 10, and sometimes 8 or 9 or 10 as early as like the end of the first quarter. Now, I think they only ran 7 plays on their first 2 drives this week.
Well, they only had 4 plays in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And it looks like 7 receivers caught a pass. Only 6 of them gained yards, though.
Okay,
with
there
MVS
you go.
going back.
So MVS doesn't count. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what you would do when you're struggling with something. I mean, whatever it is, you want to simplify it. Kind of go back to the fundamentals and kind of build yourself back up from the base. And we've talked about, I know Matt Lane has kind of talked about doing that with like routes and simplifying the routes and, giving them less option routes and sitting in zones and stuff like that, and just going to, more just like hitches and drag routes and slants and that kind of stuff. So we've seen them.
What I asked for.
We've seen them try that. Well, they were doing it before, but I mean, you and everybody else on Twitter was just like, finally, the Chiefs listened to what I said, and the offense started working. If they would have just listened to me 6 weeks ago, this never would have been a problem. Every single person came to that same realization as the game went on. It was amazing.
That's what Twitter's
Everybody was
for.
right.
Never late. Right. Never late, just early. Confirm all my priors. Always. Yes. Go out of my way to say that.
I think that is kind of like what the offense is moving forward. You got to force it to Rice.
Mm-hmm.
You got to work it to Kelsey. You want to give Sky some space. And you want to put Watson, on that deep cross, because he had a couple deep crosses where he popped wide open, and they didn't quite get it to him. But I still think that's a good route. I call this the workforce cross space offense. No, the space force cross work offense. No, force it to Rice, work it to Kelsey, put Wilson in the cross, give Sykes space. Oh no, okay, never. I think that's what the offense should be like, kind of going forward. Is those 4 aspects. Those should be the fundamentals of the passing game, at least.
Can you repeat them for me? I just want to make sure I've got it.
We got workforce cross space, space force cross work, or the workspace cross force. All great options, as I can tell by your face.
I'm trying to remember. It's force to Rice.
Force it to Rice.
Work.
Well, you gotta force it to Rice. Get him targets. Just get him 10 targets a game. We've seen him flash, and then we kind of go away from him. And you have these games and the offense struggles, and it's like, man, we get nothing from the receivers. You got to force it to Rice. And I'm still, Rice did really good, and he had like the best game of his career. The most promising route was like that back shoulder to him, because everything else was still kind of simple, drag, hitch route. I'm still not sure if it's like that's kind of like things you can count on. It was just like easy stuff that's like, here, just do this real simple from the slot, get wide open, and we'll get it to you, which is good. But as he develops, like you want to start seeing like the harder difficulty plays, like a deep in cut or something like that. But then like that back shoulder to him was real pretty. And he just kind of won that at the catch point, went up and got it. Really, I mean, could he remind you more of Dwayne Bowe? Like he has the one drop a game. He's good at the catch point like that. He's like big, but he's also kind of like explosive and fast. Like it's just like he seems identical. It's kind of crazy to me to see.
Thank you for reminding me of that perfect comparison that I made. Everything's coming up Ryan today. It feels good.
Ooh, really feeling yourself.
Feels good. I mentioned after the game, threw it out there like this might have been the 8 for 107 and a touchdown for Rashee Rice might have been better than like his 2 best games combined. His actual 2 best games combined happened in back-to-back weeks against the Broncos and Chargers. 9 catches for 132 yards and a touchdown over 2 weeks. Those were his 2 best games. And he ended with 8 for 107 and a touchdown. I mean, he's in the same neighborhood as his best 2 performances combined. I mean, I don't know how sticky these types of like target volume and the statistics are going to be for him down the backstretch, but there's no reason not to, I guess is the way that I'm looking at it. Like, you don't need to deviate from the throw Rashee Rice the football plan. I don't think you're ever going to be putting yourself in harm's way by doing it. I mean, apart from the drops, it's not like, you know, he's causing other teams to get interceptions because he's popping the ball up on these drops. It's usually like the ball just goes hits him in the hands and then goes to the ground. It's a real classic drop.
It's a great drop. Great drop. He's had a few great drops this year.
He's really, really good at dropping.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think his best play on Sunday was him dropping it to the ground.
I don't know, man. I mean, he just it's all seemed so obvious, which is why I think a lot of people were like, see, if you just do as I say, then this will work. I'm curious, you know, we got a comment early in the show about maybe Andy just said, like, this is enough from Matt Nagy and kind of took control of the situation. I mean, I still don't think that we know how Andy delegates responsibility, like who he allows to call plays and in what situations. And even when it comes down to like snap counts or whatever, like I've never been a football coach, so I'm really curious like how that all operates. Does Andy just like go in his office and do Andy stuff and then go and tell everybody this is what the game plan is this week? Or does everybody bring him proposals and he sits at the head of the table and says, I like this and I like that, and the rest of you can get out? Like, I don't know how this works. And, you know, I don't know like who to give credit to outside of Andy Reid. It seems like on the defensive side of the ball, we're all so willing to talk up a guy like Dave Merritt or a guy like Joe Cullen. And I guess on the offensive side, we'll say good things occasionally about somebody like Andy Heck. And we've asked some questions about what the loss of Eric Bieniemy means, but like on a week-to-week basis, I don't even know how important any of these assistants are. Like, Andy is ultimately the one where buck stops here, you know, but I don't know if like, well, on the weeks that we perform poorly on offense, Andy wasn't calling the plays. Like, that doesn't work. That doesn't add up to me. You got any thoughts on that? Like what role we've asked what role Bieniemy's, you know, absence is playing, but like what is Matt Nagy bringing to the table here?
Well, I would think it's very open communication. I would just imagine, you know, they're kind of sitting in a room. I mean, obviously they probably have a huge thing of plays. They're kind of going through ones that they like. They, you know, seeing what kind of defenses their opponent that week faces. Putting together a game plan to go against each of those. And I think, you know, kind of sitting in a room, and I think it's kind of open voices. You know, Nagy's got a voice. Bieniemy would have had a voice last year, obviously. I'm sure Mahomes is in there more often than not, giving his opinion. And I think it's just coming together. And you know, I would think Andy is very open to listening to his assistants, but ultimately, you know, he's the one kind of finalizing it. But like anyone, you know, Nagy has like 5 plays that he loves. I'm sure Andy's going to listen to that and go with them. Mahomes probably has 5 plays that he loves this week, probably going with those. But like, I mean, it's really tough to say because Andy will never speak too openly about it. But they're all in the communication in the helmet. I mean, obviously there was big talks about who was calling the plays. I mean, a lot of those are pre-selected kind of thing and just determining when to do it. But it did seem like most of the time, I mean, Bieniemy was the one like mouthing it in. And I feel like we've kind of seen Nagy mouthing it in too. And then Andy probably has veto power is my guess. But, you know, I mean, the whole operation, who knows? I mean, it's tough to say. I thought one of the more interesting things from this week, and one thing that's been missing is kind of the screen game. And, you know, after that first play, which was a disaster, they kind of got back to it and you know, kind of got like some easy yards that I think has really been missing throughout the year, which is one of the staples of Andy Reid. Like that's like might be number one on his list when he's going to the Hall of Fame. Like the screen game and Andy Reid's offenses always work. And I feel like those have really, I keep waiting for like a stat to pop up. Like, you know, the Chiefs gained 700 yards on screens last year and only gained 250 yards in screens this year or something. But I still haven't seen anything like that. It's probably tough to gather that information, but they have stats on fucking everything. So I'm surprised we haven't seen something like that. And then just kind of like dump down plays, just like little swings out to whoever. And those popping for just like easy little 10-yard gains. That's, you know, top of the list on Tom Brady's Hall of Fame resume is, you know, I'm going to look downfield and then I'm going to check it down and we're going to pick up the easiest 12 yards of football that there is. And so I thought there was more of that, which I think takes the pressure off of, you know, these receivers having to, you know, go down and catch like a 12-yard hitch and, or Kelsey having to beat man-to-man coverage or find this hole in the zone and just make it easier stuff. So I thought that was really, really good to see this week.
Does the McKinnon injury worry you? I mean, we saw like how important he was down the backstretch last year. And even last week, you know, you were mentioning like what are the safety valves for Mahomes? And it's basically Travis Kelce and Jerick McKinnon from 2022. And so in this year, when we're down the backstretch here, Andy mentioned that like the thing with McKinnon, the groin has been lingering and he felt like he couldn't necessarily like perform or compete at the level that he would want to with this injury. So they decided to give him the week off. And Andy used the word safe. And that to me made it seem like, okay, well, you're basically telling us that like we want McKinnon in January. And so why force him out there at the end of November?
I mean, yeah, that's been on my radar all season. I think it's a very important aspect to the offense. I mean, it obviously was down the stretch last season. It was a touchdown scoring machine, not only in the red zone, but also just catching like his when he's scrambling out there and finding someone on his ad libs. Like he was huge in that, and hasn't really produced this year. And I've been talking about it a few different times. Is that old age? Are they saving him for down the stretch? It's really tough to say, but I saw like some fantasy nerds talking about. You know, Pacheco running like the most routes that he had in his career, basically.
He had 5 catches.
He was 5 catches, and he was kind of a one-man operation running the show. Clyde came in there and looked actually pretty decent a few times, but they weren't looking for him on pass plays or anything like that. It was kind of Pacheco carrying the load for one of the few times in his career, I would say. And he did pretty good, but that is just an important aspect. Is easy yards is just it's incredibly important. Another thing, play action passes, which was another thing that was on my radar. And I talked about how the route, they had been at like over 140 each of the last 3 years, but they were only at 50 through 10 games this year, a much lower rate. So they're down to 5
number of plays. You were saying 140 play action passes 140 in the last 2 years.
Correct. Each of the last 3 years, they're in the 140s. Very consistent the last 3 years. And then all of a sudden this year, so that's probably like 8 or 9 a game, basically. And this year down to like 5.5 per game coming in. In this game, they ran 7 play action passes. These stats are courtesy of Ron Kopp, my guy, great follow. 7 play action passes in this game. They went 7 for 7 for 15.3 yards of completion and 7 first downs on those passes. So I have no clue why they're not calling more play action passes this year. That would be, you know, one of the few questions I would ask Andy, like if I could get trapped in a room with Andy and ask him just 5 questions like, why go down on play action passes this year? Like this one doesn't add up to me. So that, yeah, almost 9 per game over the last 3 seasons, 5.5. I had the stats here. And they're successful this game. So hopefully they're kind of getting back to that. You still only saw 7, which isn't the number that they got to last year. Is this something that they're saving, keeping in their holster for the back stretch here? I'm not sure, but it was good to see it happen this week and be so successful with it.
I'm curious what the other 4 questions would be if you got locked in a room with Andy Reid. But first, on McKinnon, I love this guy. You saw, I think that he went to Philly to watch the game.
Really weird.
Didn't you say, did you go to that bar? You've been there before?
Not for a game. Yeah, it was a football game, but not a Chiefs game.
Okay.
Really cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
And Nick Wright was there last week. And then also Jerick McKinnon was just there. Like, wouldn't he be on the sidelines normally? Or if he wouldn't go to the sidelines, he'd be hanging out at home. But then all of a sudden he's in Philly, and he's not from Philly. He's from Georgia. So I was like, nothing really adds up here why he watched that game in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, there was speculation that like Spags recommended it or something. Like Spags is like a made guy at Big Charlie's Saloon. They're in the heart of Philadelphia. I don't know. I mean, I guess something that I've kind of been thinking about, and this was in some ways an opportunity to see it. Like, I'm sure that if you asked pretty much any running back, they would tell you, like, give me the ball as much as possible. Pacheco seems like the type of guy that probably could get better as the game goes on. Maybe he would wear down because he runs so hard, but a lot of those guys that do run with that style, it's like, after the first 10 carries, now they're energized, now they're awake, now they're ready to really make you pay. And with the speed that he has, and honestly, the Chiefs suddenly seem like they can run to the edge. I really didn't think that running off tackle was something that they were any good at. And it seems like it's working a little bit for Pacheco. They even had the couple against the Eagles with Clyde out there. Clyde Edwards, Vince Wilfork-Hilaire. Did you see that video? It was like the funniest. Everyone's talking about how Clyde's put some weight on. He's looking a little round around the middle.
Wilfork?
And then there was the video of Vince Wilfork running with the ball. I mean, dude, I cackled.
Oh yeah.
I had no idea what to anticipate when it's a video that just says Clyde Edwards-Hilaire like trying to hit the edge or something. But then when it's Wilfork out there, it got me. The internet won that day. But I have been wondering if, like, I said earlier in the season that our second best offensive weapon, not named Patrick Mahomes, was Pacheco. That Pacheco was the next guy after Kelsey that they really needed to concentrate on giving the ball to. And I am in no way, shape, or form trying to push Jerick McKinnon out of the offense, even if for no other reason than his pass blocking repertoire. But he's just so good in obvious passing situations that I don't want to have to like force Pacheco onto the field when you have somebody that's such a savvy veteran. But I see Pacheco. Did you see I think it was the game 2 weeks ago against Miami. He like completely whiffed on a pass block rep and then got the exact same opportunity like a quarter later, and it was him fighting against the guy for like 6 seconds. Like, Pacheco just seems like a hungry ass dude, got that dog in him. And it's like he wants to play, he wants to compete, he wants to learn. And I don't know, man. Like I'm thinking that Pacheco is once again in December and January gonna be as big a part of this offense perhaps as anybody, even as much as Travis Kelce, even as much as Rashee Rice. Like, I think that he is going to become, and especially if he continues to be as effective as he was on Sunday on short yardage situations, whether it's 3rd and short or on those goal line situations, like Pacheco could be what vaults them to that home field advantage, to hosting the AFC Championship again, to potentially another Super Bowl title.
Yeah, I mean, he will be super important. I expect McKinnon to, if he's healthy, And I don't think he's, hurt so bad right now that he won't be healthy. They will continue giving him those opportunities. And so I think he will get the pass rush or the passing snaps, I guess you'd say, pass back snaps. So he would continue to get those, come hell or high water, unless it's just like he's just not performing. And I don't expect that. But it is a question of if he will be as effective as last year. But you mentioned a lot of positive with Isaiah Pacheco. There was one negative play from him. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the Chiefs made history on Sunday in a bizarre way. And folks, we got ourselves a little deep dive here.
Hey-o.
Woo! Here we are, folks.
That was a real one.
Here we are, folks. Okay, little deep dive here. I don't know if you remember or not, the very first snap of the game from the Chiefs, a negative 11-yard reception from Isaiah Pacheco on a very bad screen pass. Got me to thinking, how many times have there been negative 11-yard catches in the NFL? I will say this. Now, granted, play-by-play history only goes back to 1994, but it was the worst completed pass on a first play of the game for an offense in NFL history. NFL history going back to 1994. There's never been a worse completed pass, granted. So you have to complete it and go. There's been 32 plays all time with a negative 11-yard reception or worse. The Chiefs have 4 of them. 4 of the 32. By far the most. Nobody else has more than 2. We got Pacheco. We have Tony actually earlier in 2023. We have Lake Dawson on that list, and we have Jamal Charles. Now, of these 32 plays, 17 of them involved a fumble, catching a pass and, getting hit and the ball flies backwards. And that results in like a, negative 20-yard catch kind of thing. So wipe those out. 6 of those remaining 15 were actually completed by the quarterback to himself. So it was like quarterback catching a pass and then he gets, big loss on that. 2 of the remaining 9 were a completion to an offensive lineman, which was, illegal, but the defense wouldn't decline it because it's such a negative play. So they let that play stand. And that leaves 7 in the negative 11 club, which is Pacheco, Raheem Mostert, Mike Goodson, Gio Bernard, Jamal Charles on the list, Marion Barber, and Andrew Hawkins. And Andrew Hawkins actually holds the record for the worst completed pass that wasn't a fumble of all time, a negative 14-yard reception. So shout out to Andrew Hawkins on the 2017 Cincinnati Bengals. And that is this week's deep dive.
Nice. And it had to be a completed pass.
A completed pass
Okay.
for negative 11 yards. It's really hard to complete a pass and go that far backwards.
Yeah.
He kind of like got hit and like bounced off, but then still kept moving. So they couldn't do the forward progress where he first got hit. He had to move it all the way back to where he started his progress again. And, really killed the first drive and killed the vibe of the first quarter. I was, one of only 4 plays for the Chiefs in the first quarter.
I think he had 5 for 40 something, maybe, which means he had 4 for 50 something.
5 for 34. So,
okay. So
take that one out. He's 4 for 35 on the day. So
4 for 45.
45. Good call.
Not bad.
Got to carry the one. Got to carry the one, folks.
Not bad. But gosh, we've gone 43 and a half minutes and still have not talked about the Kansas City Chiefs defense because we don't know how. I before we get there, I do want to talk a little bit about Travis Kelce. I kind of called him out a little bit last week. Broke the streak of bad games without Taylor Swift. Good for you. I don't know if
I think she was on FaceTime on the sideline. She was
that could be it.
Like she was there.
They just put her on one of the tablets and it's just Taylor's face on the sideline. Travis goes and sits down on the bench. Hey, honey. Maybe. I could see it. I had a thought about Travis Kelce. Nothing to do with football. In fact, tangentially related to football. But really, I was starting to think about life after football. All these different things that Travis Kelce could do. People talk about how, he'd be such a good actor. He's so charming. He's got his clothing line and, $1 billion girlfriend and whatever. That Travis, it's going to be the summer of Travis, especially, God, if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Watch out, Travis Kelce fans. But this is what I think is going to happen. I'm calling my shot. Travis and Jason going to retire either in the same offseason or maybe like 1 year apart. And they are going to maybe be, I don't know if it would be like a rival situation. I don't know if they necessarily want to step on the toes here. But folks, coming around the corner, it's the Kelce cast. It's the Kelce cast. We've got new heights, but they're going to host their own like game watch party, just like the Mannings.
They would take over for the Mannings, I would think, because the Mannings are. You don't want to do that forever. It's it's already kind of winding down a little bit. Like it was great to hear for a long time. But I think the idea is to constantly refresh the people on there, and Kelce's would be fantastic at it, obviously. They
already have this great rapport. It's probably the easiest job that they could do and like make really good money because they get to just be at home. Like if you have an internet connection, you can do the Kelce cast. And obviously they've got the number one podcast, I think, anywhere, period, regardless of the platform or the genre or whatever. Like they're just kind of on top of the world. And so they'll continue to do that.
Is it bigger than ours? You think they pull in more than us?
I don't know if they're doing better numbers than when Nick Wright was on our show. Like really in the real thick of it in the great inflated Facebook numbers days. It'd be tough to beat some of those numbers we were putting up on Facebook Live in like 2016. All right, really tough to beat those numbers.
Pulling $100,000 of an audience for the live draft show that we didn't even pick a player. We just traded down. What a night! What a night that was. Kelce's can't even.
Defensively, the Chiefs.
Hold on. When you see it though, Kelce looked much better.
Yes,
and that's kind of been on our radar as well. Is just Kelce slowing down. But I thought that was exactly what we needed from him. 6 for 91 from him. Looked good doing it. Never once thought like, oh man, he looks like he's aging there. Like I kind of have each of the last 3 weeks. So I thought it was his best game in a while, statistically, obviously. But I thought he just looked good. It was exactly what we needed.
Yeah, vintage Kelce, the 6 for 91, pretty standard. Almost surprising that he didn't have a touchdown on a day like that, but great to see.
I haven't seen the Kelce shovel pass. I know that kind of ran its course a little bit. I wonder if we see that come back a little bit. I saw some team run it. Was it against the Chiefs? I saw someone that was like an option look, but he also had like a little shovel pass. I think it was the Raiders against us, and he had like a little shovel pass inside, and it looked nice. It kind of made me feel like I wanted to see it again.
When you were mentioning the screen game, I instantly started thinking of tight end screens, like that used
to be done.
Action to this side, and then the tight end's going to be over here hiding, waiting for the screen. And whether it's, honestly, Noah Gray has even looked good, like legitimately good doing that. Get the ball in his hands and let him move. I would almost like, Travis is phenomenal still, but I'd almost rather throw that one to Noah Gray now.
Kelce's still a horse. He's just a big body and just kind of
he's hard to bring down.
Gets in there, rides.
Yeah.
Man, that play used to be so good, and then it just got so obvious. But man, for a couple of years there, that play was unstoppable. All right, defense. What do you got?
Andy will pull out some stuff though. You saw the downfield screen, right?
Yeah, early in the game.
Yep.
After the negative 11-yard catch.
I was like, oh man, there's Donnie Avery out there.
Pulling out the 2014 playbook, just blowing off the desk. What do we got on old 3rd and 18 here?
Defensively, slow start, obviously. But to see another team really not even be able to cross the 20-point mark. Did the Raiders score in the second half? They had all 17 in the first half, or was the field goal in the second half?
Field goal second half. We haven't allowed over 25 all season. I think that's the benchmark. We're the only team in the NFL that has not allowed 25 or more.
Yeah, I think that we saw some splash plays. McDuffie had a really awesome pass breakup on a blitz that I enjoyed. Karlaftis getting that sack was nice. Tranquil had a couple tackles for loss.
Tranquil looked really good, I thought.
Dude, I think that this conversation has probably been had by many at this point, but the Chiefs are going to they're in such an interesting position at linebacker. They have one too many as soon as Bolton comes back. And Andy's already talking about trying to get him back in the mix. I think it still might probably be a couple weeks before he's active. But like Nick Bolton is an all-pro. There's not a scenario in which they're going to be like, you know what? We're not going to play Nick Bolton because Drew Tranquill's playing so well. I think that you have to start looking at fewer snaps for Chenal and Gay would be my guess. But it becomes really interesting going forward because, like, they have not missed a beat without Nick Bolton. And of the guys on that defense outside of Chris Jones, Nick Bolton is probably the next biggest name nationally. And knowing what they have to do in terms of some of these contracts, like, I don't know how valuable he is. I can't remember what did the Bears get when they traded Roquan Smith?
It was a second round pick, I think.
And he is like, he got $100 million from the Ravens, right? So like if you trade Bolton, you might get like a third, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, linebackers just aren't that valuable. I mean, it's right. It is interesting because Tranquill's on such a low cap number right now. I mean, if you can keep him on that, then I think you start to make kind of future plans around him. But I think his price is going to go quite a bit up after this season. I mean, I don't know if I assume the league is noticing, but he looks fantastic.
But didn't he lead the Chargers? He had like 140 tackles last year.
It was such a weird signing when we signed him because it was just like, man, we got Bolton and Gay. We're only running two linebackers here. We spent a third round pick on Chenal. Like there isn't a position we're more set at other than like tight end or QB. And it's just like we randomly signed Drew Tranquill. I was like, okay, that must be because he really wants to be here, or it's just like a player that we really liked and we're just gonna bring him in and throw him in and see what happens. And man, that move has probably paid off more than any other move this season. Like an unbelievable move to get him. He's making $3 million this season. And so I still want to see when they come back, Bolton and Tranquill together. I hope that they can make that happen. I noticed Gay missed a couple assignments this week. I think it might have been kind of on the same play, like where the tight end kind of blocked and then went out for his route, and Gay kind of like, assumed he was just blocking and kind of like went towards the quarterback, and it was just like an easy 15, 20-yard dump off. And he got yanked after the second one. So a tough game for Willie Gay. And they brought in Chenal in there. But man, I'd love to see Bolton and Tranquill in there figured out. But Tranquill looked fantastic in this game. It looked great all season, really.
Is there a world where the Chiefs have to sign Drew Tranquill this offseason? They don't want him to leave, and it costs them Nick Bolton. That they keep Tranquill, and that means that when Bolton is up for a contract, they don't give it to him, and he leaves.
Well, just for the record, we still have Bolton for one more year, right?
I believe this is year 3. Yes.
So yeah, next year we still have him. Ask it again. Is there
is there a world where they basically pick in the long term, they say, we're going to give Tranquill this big contract that was maybe earmarked for Bolton, and we're going to let Bolton walk?
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting because he was a draft pick and, bordering on Super Bowl MVP last year. He's a guy that they love.
Yeah.
Man. Like,
and they pump up a lot, and you can tell because like the national media will talk about him and they'll call him like an all-pro linebacker kind of thing. And, I think that's kind of coming from the Chiefs to put that out there. So yeah, it's an interesting discussion. I think the solution is trying to play them together. So it might be a choice between like Tranquill and Gay. If you're telling me both of those guys are going to make the same amount of money next year, like give me Tranquill 100 times out of 100. Even though Gay's had a good season with a tough game this week. But still, I mean, with Chenal still under contract, I don't know. There's lots of options there. I would like to see more of Bolton and Tranquill playing together to see if it can happen. It kind of reminds me of like the old Chiefs when we had, these two. We had Demario Williams and Derek Johnson. Both seemed like great linebackers, but we couldn't play them together. We had to keep playing these shitty linebackers, the strong inside linebacker next to him, and it was just like, just put them both out there. That kind of led to like all the Derek Johnson sitting for a whole year and made him flourish, all that weirdness. But yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. But it's a bevy of goods at linebacker right now, I would say.
Yeah, I mean they're absolutely loaded, both there and corner. It seems like one thing that I want to just kind of check your pulse here. We always knew that this was going to be a kind of slow played, not a red shirt, but not a particularly active season for the guy that they decided to take in the first round, a Felix and Udike Uzama, one of the youngest players in the draft last year. And obviously a kid from Lee's Summit, played at K-State. There's a lot of things here that, with the draft in KC, it kind of seemed like they almost telegraphed it a little bit. This seems like the perfect pick here because we can't take a wide receiver or whatever. I wonder, I've seen a lot of people being like, he only got 3 snaps. Like, you need more from your first round pick here. Like, are you at all worried about his career trajectory right now? I mean, because it seems like, especially as soon as Amenahu came back, like, there's just going to be so few snaps to go around for this guy. And, we're talking about potentially losing both Chris Jones and Mike Dana from this rotation to where, like, hey, Felix, you got a year, and next year you are a starter. Like, he potentially could be starting opposite Karlaftis with Amenahu primarily being a defensive tackle next year, to where, like, maybe we just this year is about learning and adjusting to the pro game and getting another year of developing his body. I think he's only 21 years old. So I don't want to be worried about him, but it does. I don't know, his first round pick and he's hardly seeing the field. Is that like bad for his confidence? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the discussion. I thought the most interesting thing I've seen on it, Nick Jacobs kind of tweeted out some snaps of other first round defensive ends, and Nolan Smith, who was a guy that, a lot of people wanted and went directly the pick in front of us to the Eagles, to an equally stacked defensive line rotation, probably more stacked. He only has 72 snaps on the whole season. Felix is sitting at 136 for the season. So almost twice as much from Felix to Nolan Smith. I don't know how he's doing or anything like that, but it was kind of reassuring, just like, okay, like, these guys don't always pan out, how you want right away. I'm not worried just because the guys in front of him are playing so well. So it's just like a tough path to see snaps for him. I would be worried if Malik Herring was consistently getting snaps over him. And I think they were kind of both playing in there for a while until Amenahu came back from his suspension. And now there's not really room for either one of them. And this is kind of a reason, Frank Clark probably came in and there was talk about practice squad. And it's just like, where are these snaps going to come from? Because there's only so many. And each of these guys are playing so well. Like, we don't want to take them off the field. And so you throw in Chris Jones getting snaps at defensive end, with these other guys playing so well. There's not really room for him. So I'm not worried. I would be worried if, we started seeing Malik Herring getting snaps. That would be like the threshold of, because I feel like he's just, kind of a bottom of the line roster kind of guy. So if he was playing over him, then I'd be a little worried. I did see that he got yanked after that long Jacobs run this week was kind of at his gap, and he kind of got really moved off his spot, and that was his last snap in this particular game. I wouldn't expect the run game to be his strength. He seems like a speed guy coming off the edge that you want to use in a lot of pass rush situations, obvious pass rush situations. So that's one thing where, like, you could see him coming back next year, and it's like, okay, Felix added 15 pounds of muscle in this offseason. Now he's ready to, play every down in the NFL kind of thing. And that's one reason why, re-signing Mike Dana just kind of makes it tough for everybody, because you got Amenahu. How long did Amenahu sign for? 3 years, was it?
I think it was 2.
Okay, only 2 years. Or maybe it's a 3-year deal and he's just staying 2 years. But, you got George Karlaftis ain't going anywhere. Obviously, if you re-sign Dana, you're just, keeping that crowded room at defensive end, and really kind of buries that the snaps for Felix. So I'm not really sure where he comes in. He really got pushed. He was in the first team pass rush package that they had, when they slide Chris Jones out and move all the defensive line everywhere. He was in that until Amenahu came along. think I'd say maybe like a weird draft choice. But everything's forward thinking with the Chiefs. I mean, everything at this point is, we've got 10, 12 more years of Patrick Mahomes. We're not, going all in for any of these seasons. So, building up the defensive line is never a bad move, as the Eagles have showed us. Just keep dumping first round picks on the defensive line and, hope enough of them hit, because you just always need defensive linemen in a pass rush.
Well, and something to keep in mind, I think is important for everybody. You mentioned Nolan Smith. I started looking at some of the other guys that went in that first round, the guys that went ahead of him. Tyree Wilson went to the Raiders. They ended up actually releasing Chandler Jones, having really nothing to do with Tyree Wilson. But this is a guy that's a top 10 pick, and he's got about 300 snaps on the season. And he's, a sack and a half, hasn't done a whole lot. Lucas Van Ness, if you want to jump in, go ahead.
Yeah, I got the full list here. So it's Will Anderson, the third overall pick, 500 snaps. Tyree Wilson, 323. I know he's struggled a lot. Van Ness, 249. Will McDonald, I know he's struggled a lot, 101. Miles Murphy, 163. Nolan Smith, 72. Felix, 136. So he's kind of in the same range of, the other players taken around him. He's obviously not going to be like Will Anderson, but it's really tough for first-year defensive ends. Like remember those stack numbers we're kind of talking about with George last year? Like, first-round defensive linemen just do not pile up sacks. Like, it's just rare to see them, even get close to double digits. Like, they're just, 5 sacks kind of guy. And I know there's the guy from the Jets who was like the defensive end. Oh, that is Will McDonald. He's hardly playing. That's the Iowa State guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know he's hardly
he's
playing.
like 44, I think, too.
So, I think it's just a tough position, and those are just kind of guys you have to develop. So I don't think it's a bad move that they picked him. I'm not ready to say that by any means. I'm not really worried either.
Yeah,
he looked good when he played. He looked good. He flashed a few times when he played. So
yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, it's not something that anybody needs to be worried about right now. The pass rush isn't struggling. And so maybe like if they weren't being as productive and Felix isn't seeing the field, then that's a problem. But this defense is exceptional, really across the board, and the defensive line has really been leading the way. George Karlaftis, man, he is, I think, better right now than I thought like he might have been at his peak. Like, he is doing what we were thinking is his ceiling, and he's really been doing it since about midway through his rookie season, and has just continued to play exceptionally well. He is certainly, I believe, on track for double-digit sacks right now. I think he has 8 through 10 games, or 11 games now.
11, yeah.
Yeah, 11 games now. They really seemed to knock it out of the park with Karlaftis and McDuffie in that first round last year. Shout out to Brett Beach.
I would say.
My goodness.
Last thing on the defense for me is just L'Jarius. It was a really tough start for him, especially with all those stats coming about him shutting down number one receivers. And then Devontae Adams just comes up and starts eating early in that game. So he got to 5 catches, 73 yards. And as Craig Stout pointed out, did not allow a catch, or Devontae didn't have a catch past the 13-minute mark of the second quarter. Yeah. So as bad as that start was, 5 for 73 from Devontae, I think you'll kind of take that, especially following him around all day. It really seems like the Chiefs' strategy now is L'Jarius falling around that number one receiver and McDuffie sitting in the slot and just blitzing him like crazy. So that was interesting. It's good to see that L'Jarius bounced back, because at the early it was just like, man, what happened to those L'Jarius shutting down the number one receiver stats that we all saw? But I think he redeemed himself as that game went on.
Yeah, I don't know what it was other than maybe a Nick Wright tweet predicting it, but the Raiders go up 14-0, and then the Chiefs proceed to go on a 31-3 run. The Raiders offense is not really getting anything done. And the Chiefs offense is suddenly looking, pretty sharp. I mean, you got 31 points in 3 quarters. I don't know what it was that changed, but once they got moving on both sides of the ball, they were basically perfect for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and let me just see this for a few more weeks, and get our confidence back up in this offense. And if they start rolling like this, I'm going to be ultra confident going into January. I had one last fun little stat here. If you're all out of stuff, I think a lot of people saw that stat going around. It was like the best pro sports team since 2019 stat, and the Chiefs had the highest win percentage across all sports. They're looking at win percentage across all sports since 2019. They were ahead of everybody else by 8% in win percentage points. 8%. That's to second in all of sports. The Bills were second on that list, and they just lost again. So that gap got even wider between the Chiefs and everybody else. I did a little math. If the Chiefs lose their next 10 games, they would still be the winningest team in all of sports since 2019. That is absurd.
It's a
That
beautiful
is
thing.
absurd.
It's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes for you. Chiefs heading to Lambeau on Sunday Night Football, the worst time slot that there is, at least for public school educators. I would love to see a game in Lambeau. I would not love for it to be on like December 3rd. That sounds brutal. Hopefully it ends up being a really fun game as the Chiefs take on Jordan Love. Big revenge game for Jordan Love, right? Real pissed off still about his parents having to sit in the absolute top row at Arrowhead Stadium. Was that his first career start?
Yeah, his first career start. He looked pretty bad in that game. He looked pretty bad for most of the season, but I think he's had like the best 3 games of his career the last 3 weeks.
Okay.
So he's actually kind of heating up and has looked pretty good lately. So the Packers, and now they're, I think, only a game out of that wild card spot. So a huge game for them. Should be a rocking crowd. It might snow, I saw.
Okay.
So this could be a lot of fun. When did that get flexed? I never saw it get flexed to Sunday night. Was it always Sunday night?
I think it was always Sunday night.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Didn't have that checked up, but yeah, that's gonna be a fun one.
I think it's going to be a pretty excellent game. I believe I saw that the Packers have been underdogs in their last 3 games and ended up like winning by just about the amount that they were not favored by. Like whatever, they're 3-point underdog and they end up winning by 3. So they've done that now 3 weeks in a row, I believe. So people were really not believing in the Packers because of that slow start, but they seem to have turned things around. They've got a pretty nasty defense. It's going to be a tough matchup for the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. Hopefully we get another win. Chiefs keep this get the streak a moving here. I say continue the streak, the 1-game winning streak. All right, folks. Well, this has been Amateur Hour. I'm Ryan Scott Hall. He's his Dirkness, and Justin Herbert remains Phillip Rivers.
He's way worse.